quiet modern kitchen, where sweet scents hide a violent and deeply tragic history of forgotten blood. The blade cuts the skin, releasing a million tiny seeds into darkness, while the abyss consumes the bitter truth. We fall through the essence, down into the deep, ancient soil, where the first beautiful orchid bleeds. Heavy rains pound the earth, washing away the footprints of Totonac tribes, who worship this majestic wild coast. Beneath the sprawling emerald canopy, the fertile mud holds a terrifying secret. Born from forbidden immortal royal love, Princess Morningstar was divine, promised entirely to the powerful goddess, but her wild heart chose fate otherwise. She fled into the dark, running with her mortal lover fearlessly, until the cruel high priests attacked. Flaming torches pierced the shadows, bringing brutal divine justice to the pair, leaving them absolutely no way out. A sharp obsidian stone flashed, slicing through their young flesh without mercy, feeding the hungry, cold forest floor. Their warm blood sank deep, transforming into a creeping vine crawling upwards, seeking the distant, warm, glowing sun. A single delicate blossom opened, wearing a pale yellow hue of sorrow, fragile yet intoxicatingly beautiful forever. Nature demanded a specific key, summoning the tiny stingless Melipona bee, the only sacred creature allowed strictly inside. The dying flower curled inward, birthing a long, slender, green, magical pod, holding the eternal soul of lovers. Indigenous hands harvested the pods, laying them out under the tropical sun, until they turned completely pitch black. This was the sacred Tlalilchochil, a dark flower radiating a sweet scent, ready to conquer massive, powerful empires. The delicate, pale flower opens for a single day, waiting desperately for the only creature capable of granting it eternal life. Under the vast ancient canopy, the Totonac people watch the green vines, knowing the brief magic approaches. A tiny stingless Melipona bee arrives, guided by an intoxicating invisible scent, diving deep into the intricate golden bloom. Sunlight pierces the thick emerald leaves, blessing the sacred union of flora, a microscopic dance deciding the heavy harvest. She collects the sticky golden pollen, carrying the heavy burden of pure creation, ensuring the legendary dark pod will grow. Days pass as the fragile petals wither, giving way to a slender green finger, pointing downward like a silent promise. The unripe fruit swells with unseen power, hiding a highly complex ancient chemistry, waiting patiently for the punishing tropical sun. The village erupts in rhythmic celebration, honoring the generous eternal forest spirits who gifted them the fragrant royal daughter. Calloused brown hands carefully twist the vine, severing the emerald treasure from its mother, beginning a long ritual of deep transformation. Thousands of green pods blanket the square, baking under the brutal midday heat, shrinking as their hidden essence slowly awakens. The thick green skin starts to sweat, releasing heavy moisture into the humid air, turning a deep, rich brown by sunset. As twilight claims the fading sky, elders wrap the warm pods in blankets, forcing them to ferment in utter darkness. A miraculous alchemy occurs in the shadows, turning the flesh pitch black and oily, breathing out a scent defying earthly logic. High priests walk among the cured harvest, inhaling the absolutely intoxicating, dark, sweet aroma, preparing the sacred offering for greater powers. The black gold is carefully tied, holding the tragic blood of ancient lovers, ready to become the ultimate imperial tribute. A ruthless new empire rises, crushing the peaceful coastal tribes completely, demanding their most precious treasures. The defeated Totonacs surrender their gold, handing over the fragrant black orchids reluctantly to save their burning beautiful villages. Deep inside the island capital, the magnificent floating city of Tenochtitlan breathes, inhaling the intoxicating sweet tribute. Scribes record the royal taxes, drawing intricate glyphs of the dark flower, carefully counting every single valuable pod. The great emperor sits high, watching his loyal servants prepare the feast, demanding the ultimate drink of gods. Heavy stones crush the pods, violently releasing the trapped ancient romantic souls, blending with rich, bitter brown cacao. Servants pour the sacred liquid, creating a thick, rich, frothy, aromatic crown, fit for absolute divine imperial rulers. The royal golden cup overflows, holding the absolute peak of mortal luxury, heavily spiced with pure black magic. Elite warriors drink the brew, consuming the power of the dark flower, believing it grants immortal fierce strength. Tliltzochitl becomes the perfect bride, permanently bound to the bitter cacao king, a marriage strictly reserved for kings. Beneath the towering stone pyramids, the sprawling market trades flesh and gold, yet the dark pods remain priceless. A cautious merchant guards them, knowing a handful buys a human life, a terrifyingly high price for flavor. The empire rests in power, totally unaware of the impending massive storm gathering across the dark, violent ocean. A foreign shadow approaches fast, bringing cold steel and unyielding religious fury, seeking all the hidden ancient gold. Strange floating wooden mountains arrive, carrying the greedy conquerors of old worlds, ready to steal the sacred aroma. Iron armor glints beneath the fierce sun as a terrifying new god arrives violently, demanding every ounce of Aztec gold. Heavy Spanish steel boots crush the stones, shattering centuries of peaceful, ancient, indigenous traditions without a single hint of remorse. The magnificent floating city burns to ash, choking the sky with thick black smoke, ending an era of brutal glory. A conqueror forces open a carved chest, revealing hundreds of oily, dark, fragrant pods, stealing the breath of the victor. Moctezuma falls while his palaces are stripped, leaving behind only whispers of forgotten gods and the scent of dark orchids. Ruthless hands pack the sacred black flowers, stuffing them violently into crude wooden barrels, preparing for a long ocean voyage. Massive wooden galleons depart the bleeding coast, carrying stolen fortunes across the treacherous Atlantic, leaving behind a devastated, empty land. Trapped deep inside the dark ship hull, the stolen orchid dreams of humid jungles, rocking violently with the angry waves. Lightning tears across the terrifying dark ocean, threatening to sink the empire of thieves. Yet the fragrant cargo somehow survives. The ship captain drinks the bitter brew, heavily spiced with the exotic black pod, tasting the absolute power of conquest. The battered fleet finally reaches Spanish shores, unloading chests of ungodly wealth and flavor, changing the European palate forever now. Pale, noble hands touch the wrinkled skin, marveling at the intensely sweet foreign aroma, entirely ignorant of its bloody origins. The grand Spanish royal court drinks chocolatl, demanding more of the addictive dark flower, fueling a massive global economic hunger. Old European botanists study the strange pod, desperately trying to unlock its biological secrets, hoping to grow the magic themselves. The dark spice spreads across grand palaces, conquering the greedy hearts of powerful kings, becoming the ultimate symbol of wealth. The royal botanical gardens build grand glass houses, hoping to domesticate the wild foreign vine, far from its bloody ancient homeland. Lush green leaves uncoil perfectly in artificial heat, yet the beautiful pale yellow orchids refuse to yield their dark, precious treasure. Decades pass as powerful, greedy monarchs grow impatient, throwing vast fortunes at desperate royal botanists, demanding the secret of the pod. The delicate flower blooms briefly for a day, then falls lifeless onto the cold dirt, leaving the European scientists completely baffled. They imported the fertile soil and hot climate, but they forgot the tiny invisible ghost, the sacred Melipona bee of Mexico. Without her vital kiss, the orchid remains barren, holding on to its deeply hidden ancient magic, punishing the arrogant, greedy, foreign kings. Meanwhile, the price of imported black pods skyrockets, fueling massive, dangerous global black market trading across the perilous, wild Atlantic Ocean. A single dark bean sits quietly on velvet, guarded like a flawless, rare royal diamond, worth far more than human life. Great European empires send ships back to Mexico, desperate to secure the highly addictive spice, as the mysterious curse remains unbroken. French aristocrats powder their pale faces in wigs, masking the stench of rotting, dying cities. With the sweet ghost of Totonac, the dark flower has successfully conquered the conquerors, wrapping its invisible sweet vines tightly around the absolute highest peaks of power. Alchemists try mixing ground vanilla with pure alcohol, creating heavy, intoxicating golden perfumes and elixirs, seeking a cure for mortal despair. For 300 years, the mystery stands undefeated, laughing silently at the great European minds, hiding the truth in plain sight. A withered brown vanilla flower rests under glass, symbolizing the ultimate failure of colonial arrogance, unable to master the wild nature. But the Empire of France looks further east, carrying the barren vine to volcanic islands, where a miraculous, tragic breakthrough awaits. A massive volcano sleeps silently, while deep inside the brutal French plantations, the dark orchid vine continues, slowly dying. Slave owners beat the dry earth, cursing the stubborn, useless green stems, wishing they had never brought it. A young enslaved boy walks quietly, carrying heavy burdens under the harsh sun, named Edmond by his cruel masters. His scarred, dark fingers touch leaves, feeling the pain of the silent plant, understanding its deep, ancient, forgotten sorrow. The young boy watches nature closely, observing the tiny, fragile, pale yellow orchids desperately want to share their heavy pollen. He breaks a tiny, sharp thorn, picking it from a nearby green citrus, preparing to do the absolutely impossible. No noble scientist or wealthy king could imagine what this brave child attempts under the harsh shadow of colonial whips. The sharp thorn lifts the membrane, pressing golden pollen gently against the stigma, forcing the unwilling magical flower to mate. A few quiet, humid days pass before an absolute botanical miracle takes shape, as the long green pod boldly emerges. The curse of 300 years is completely broken by a clever child, unlocking billions in future global dark wealth. The cruel master discovers the pods, claiming the incredibly brilliant historical breakthrough entirely, stealing the glory from the young slave. Millions of dark beans are harvested, flooding the greedy European market very rapidly, transforming the island into a wealthy paradise. The French Empire builds massive fortunes, trading intensely sweet black gold across oceans, while the true genius remains totally forgotten. He receives no shiny gold coins, getting nothing for his monumental global gift, dying in tragic poverty without any recognition. His incredible legacy flavors the world, bringing immense joy to every human life, hiding the bitter tears of a slave. The enslaved boy becomes a free man, walking away from the massive green estates, carrying nothing but his broken pride. He looks at his empty, scarred hands, remembering the brilliant ancient botanical secret that made his cruel masters incredibly wealthy. The busy island port expands wildly, loading heavy, dark, fragrant colonial cargo, bound for the elite palaces of Europe. Rich merchants count shiny golden coins, celebrating the massive, booming vanilla economy, completely ignoring the original brilliant young creator. The brilliant inventor rots in a cell, falsely accused by a deeply corrupt society, losing the very last shred of dignity. Cold iron bars replace the green vines, mocking his totally invaluable global contribution, leaving his tragic spirit completely shattered inside. Far across the violently raging ocean, Parisian high society consumes delicate sweet pastries, flavored heavily with his stolen dark magic. The cold white cream slowly melts, tasting like pure, innocent, joyful, sweet memories, hiding a deeply profound, historical, human sorrow. He takes his absolute, final, quiet breath, passing away in tragic, complete, lonely obscurity as the world blindly devours his gift. A single dried pod falls silently, mourning the true king of the orchid, who gave the entire world its flavor. The greedy French Empire eventually expands further, bringing the stolen vines to wild Madagascar, starting a completely new era of cultivation. Rich, red African soil welcomes the stranger, feeding the thirsty green, parasitic tropical roots, creating the absolute highest quality dark spice. The large island quickly dominates global supply, producing thousands of tons of sweet aroma, feeding an incredibly massive modern global industry. Machines extract the precious, dark, sticky essence, stripping away the tragic, ancient romantic soul, reducing the magical flower to mere profit. But out in the dangerous, dark fields, poor farmers nervously guard their ripening crops, knowing the black gold attracts deadly thieves. The dark green fields hide a dangerous new reality, where modern farmers patrol with heavy weapons, protecting the incredibly valuable spice. Cold steel barrels rest against the delicate tropical vines, guarding the green pods under the moonlight, ready to kill for flavor. Violent thieves strike swiftly in the deep, silent darkness, tearing unripe pods violently from the branches, desperate for quick black cash. A sharp machete blade cuts through the humid air, leaving behind a trail of fresh blood, staining the fragrant red soil. The harvested black gold is locked inside steel vaults, treated like highly guarded, brilliant ancient diamonds, before shipping to modern cities. Workers brand each individual bean with tiny, sharp needles, creating a permanent, unique biological tracking code, preventing the rampant global theft. Massive container ships cross the vast, deep blue oceans, carrying the bloody harvest toward peaceful nations, feeding a massive, innocent hunger. The dark extract drips into bright, colorful industrial vats, mixing perfectly with pure white refined sugar, erasing its incredibly violent past. Bright, smiling faces consume the sweet, cold, white desserts, completely blind to the agonizing, distant suffering, hidden perfectly in every bite. A single black speck rests upon a happy lip, tasting only of innocent, pure, joyful childhood, masking the tragic, dark blood. The ancient Totonac princess remains a forgotten, dead ghost, her tragic romantic sacrifice completely monetized today by massive, faceless global corporations. The fragile, pale yellow orchid continues to bloom silently, opening its delicate petals very briefly today, begging for a lost bee. The young enslaved genius sleeps beneath warm, volcanic soil, his monumental, brilliant botanical gift heavily exploited, while his lonely name fades. The journey returns to the quiet, modern, beautiful kitchen, staring closely at the shiny, wrinkled pod, now holding a terrifying weight. The sweet, comforting scent fills the entire peaceful room. But the tragic history remains violently awake, hidden perfectly in plain sight.